Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Beyond the Apex podcast. Today is the Spanish Grand Prix and it was a very, very good Grand Prix again.
It was. I mean, we've just literally watched the highlights again to kind of run over it. But insane moves.
Yeah, some unbelievable racing. I mean, we always know that the Circuit de Catalunya always is perfect for racing. It's wide, it's got really nice flying corners, and this Grand Prix showed that. I mean, with some of the battles with George and Lando, and the Ferraris battling, and the Mercs battling, it was unbelievable.
Absolutely insane. And we'll get on to Red Bull. Obviously, fastest car, I'm pretty sure we can always say that.
Yes.
Max 2.1, 2.2 nearly.
Yeah.
Seconds ahead, winning.
I definitely think it was a lot closer to this time. I think Red Bull may have just had the edge on fastest car this weekend, but it was very, very tight again. But as going into this weekend, we thought they'd have a much bigger margin than we thought we would. So, on other circuits which aren't as kind of test ready as this one, it's going to be a lot closer, I think. But again, fantastic execution by the Red Bull team. Max showing why he's the best driver on the grid, and Checo showing why he's not.
Absolutely, like they showed Checo overtaking Gasly for P9.
Yeah.
And it's like Max is over there winning the race, and
he's overtaken an Alpine.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
like,
well done. And I mean, it's always down to his qualifying. He didn't even get into Q3 this race, which, to be fair, from Checo, are we surprised?
No,
not really. But he just got to P8, and it just wasn't the best race possible. And Christian always loves him at the end of the race. It's like, we were doing the simulations, and P8 was the best he could have ever got. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
they just have to say that.
Yeah, they have to say that. And it's just not the case. And as we were saying last podcast, I really do think he's going to take a toll on Red Bull soon.
I think so. I completely agree. We'll move on to Mercedes.
I mean, it's still there. The race pace is still there.
Just a one-off weekend. Obviously, they are looking fast.
They are looking very fast, and they are clearly quicker than the Ferrari now. I think. I think it's very fair to say. Obviously, with Hamilton on the podium this time instead of George, and obviously George right behind him. They were battling most of the race. I mean, this is looking up for Merc now for sure.
Absolutely, and that's really quite nice to see because obviously we haven't seen that before. And especially for Hamilton and George, they're both fast drivers. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
They're on par, aren't they?
Yes, I really think so. And we see that because obviously Charles and Sainz are always somewhat together. I mean, we are seeing now we're at the top echelon of kind of where everyone is. We are seeing a bigger gap between Oscar and Lando, which I didn't expect, but also Oscar is still somewhat there. But as you said, Hamilton and Russell are always together on track. Always, and that's why we always see them battling. Because they are just so even on pace.
And talking about battling, I mean, insane battles.
Oh my god!
Throughout the race between those two.
And I mean, shall we say, obviously, in the past, George has been kind of given this stereotype of not being good wheel to wheel. But the last two races have proved that he is there. He is unbelievable wheel to wheel.
He is. I mean, we'll talk about it when we talk about Lando, but him and Lando's wheel-to-wheel action.
Oh my god.
Insane, so you cannot say he is not good at wheel-to-wheel racing when you see that, can you?
And also, any other driver probably would have backed out after Lando got him around the outside. They would have been like, right, Lando's on quicker tyres, he's ahead, let me bed in and then save some time. But no, George went, screw
that.
Round the outside, stuck it round the outside, and stuck it down the inside. I mean, obviously, Lando did get past later, but it was unbelievable wheel-to-wheel battling. Yeah, really, really good. But I mean, moving on to Ferrari, it was a lot better than Canada for sure. They definitely had a lot of pace. They are the fourth fastest car right now, but they are there in the battle.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
But that's kind of really it. I mean, there's nothing much more to say. I mean, Charles was closing down George at the end, and I think the gap was 4/10 at the end. So they definitely had the pace to battle the Mercs, but they're not quicker at the moment. No. And I think that is Charles kind of extending, because obviously they had team orders. Sainz was 10 seconds off Charles in the end, and it is kind of, they don't want to be there where Charles is outperforming the car instead of the car just being there.
No.
But I think they'll take some promise.
No, I think so. I think so. We'll go on to McLaren, obviously.
It was pretty much the fastest car. I mean, as I said, Red Bull may have just pipped them.
But it's so close.
It's so close. And do you know what? I genuinely think the cars are here, the second drives are here, and Max and Lando are just here. It's clear that if we do have a championship battle this year, which I don't think it's going to be between those two. And I think Lando's, Lando has to kind of take his eyes off the championship. He needs to go for vice championship, I think, because if he's doing that, he's doing well in the constructors as well.
Yep.
But it is looking very, very nice.
It is. It's looking promising as well. I think McLaren will be very happy with that in terms of the outcome from the season in general.
Yeah.
But yeah. Piastri, what, P7?
P7, it's not great, but again, he's just on the back of the Ferraris.
Yeah.
So he is there somewhat, but it isn't the Piastri that we saw of last season, where he'd be up on the podium with Lando, he'd be there every single race. But I do think it's the fact that now Lando has a car that can genuinely fight for wins. It pushes him further. It's not Oscar getting worse. Lando is just getting better and better every race.
Absolutely.
He's pushing himself further than he's ever pushed himself before, because now he's not pushing for P7, he's pushing for race wins.
No,
and it's, I really do think we're going to see the best out of Max this season and also the best out of Lando.
Yep, I completely agree. And you are right, it's just Lando kind of taking that extra leap forward to fight with Max rather than Oscar looking back.
Absolutely. He's outperforming the car like hell right now, but so is Max.
Yeah.
So it is just going to be so interesting for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So going on to Aston Martin, obviously both cars out of the points, and they just didn't really have any pace at all.
No.
They would have wanted it out of the Spanish Grand Prix, obviously Alonso's home race, but they just didn't really have any pace at all.
No, nowhere, absolutely nowhere.
But obviously today, we're filming this a week later, and they have just announced that it is Stroll's got a contract extension. Are we surprised? Absolutely not. But it says for 2026 and beyond, so I'm guessing it's just they don't feel the need to sign a contract every year. But that is kind of locking out and do you know what, we would have expected Tsunoda to take that second seat. I'm not going to lie, with the Honda coming in, we would have expected them to be trying to get a Japanese driver in. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that team now, because obviously Fernando's staying for the near future. Is Tsunoda in that car afterwards? Who knows?
Who knows?
But yes, let's now take a pause and go on to Alpine.
Okay, so moving on to Alpine, a great double points finish from them.
Another great double points finish. And I mean, surely at this point now we've got to say the car is there.
It's getting there,
yes,
if anything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, ever since they brought the weight reduction, they have been battling in the points for the majority. And I mean, look, we were seeing the Alpines battling the Red Bulls. We never would have expected that. So I think they're going to be definitely leaving Spain with their heads held high. And Gasly ahead of Ocon once more, obviously this time without team orders. However, he is outperforming him.
No, I agree. And I mean, it's great to see from Alpine, because obviously we've had such kind of negative things to say at the start of the season anyway. So seeing them finishing in the points again, we're talking about kind of other teams maybe not performing to their level, and then Alpine,
it's kind of everyone falling back.
But it's still a great week. Finish for them on the weekend.
And I mean, this race weekend, obviously we saw Flavio Briatore come back to the team as a senior advisor. So basically, he's going to be shadow team principal. I think everyone's kind of taking from that. He's kind of talking it down, but he's going to be mainly controlling that team, trying to bring it back to the start again. And I think that's mainly why we've seen that Gasly had a contract extension announcement this morning. Which, you know what, I don't think that's the best decision he could have made. I definitely think he could have invested in a long-term project like an Audi, like a Williams. However, it's going to be good for him. Obviously, French driver, French team. They would have thrown all of the money at him to sign that. But yeah, I mean, they will be happy right now.
They will. We'll move on to Williams.
There's nothing much to say. No. They had zero pace this weekend at all. They were really at the back. I mean, both drivers were saying, look, we have nothing. Sargent was 2 laps behind in the end, which is not a surprise. But yeah, there's really nothing there. No. I mean, Racing Bulls, even worse.
I mean, I don't know how you can possibly be even
worse. But I mean, there was no pace at all. Tsunoda was just saying everything they tried didn't work. And I mean, at that point, you kind of just write off the weekend and just forget about it. But I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, we've got three teams here that are kind of like nowhere. I mean, talking about Sauber next. I mean, obviously,
it was a decent race, but that's because, as we always say, the other teams are falling behind. I mean, for the first time, Zhou was ahead of Bottas. Zhou definitely outperformed Bottas in the race anyway. In qualifying, he never does. But in the race, he did actually have solid race pace in comparison to Bottas. However, that Sauber was just ahead of the others because the others were slower.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, points, but Sorry, no points.
Yeah.
But like still positive. But then again, positive because the other people were negative.
Yeah, and the other teams are going to bounce back. So Sauber will just take their place in last again. So yeah, I don't know. You can say it's a decent race, but also if you look at it in the bigger picture,
exactly,
it's really not. I mean, and if you look, they're always still a lap off. It's not like they're 50 seconds off the lead now. They're not. But I mean, moving on to the final team, Haas. I mean, Hulkenberg just on the edge of the points. And of course, in the Spanish Grand Prix, where there's normally drama, there was no DNFs, so he couldn't get lucky and have like a Sainz DNF or something like that.
Yeah.
He was just on the edge. He had the pace for points, but unfortunately, just missed out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously Magnussen was nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah, but I mean, and that was it. I mean, the Spanish Grand Prix was very exciting. It was a very entertaining race. But we're on to Austria next weekend. Obviously, it's a triple header, and I cannot wait for the upcoming ones because we have got Silverstone in 2 weeks as well. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.